All right. Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to the show. I'm John Clay, your host and chief strategy guy. Welcome to another episode of Benefits with John Clay. That's me. Everything is good here. I hope everything is good where you are. Hope you're getting your shopping done for Christmas. Everything is beautiful. We don't have beautiful weather here. We've had a weather front come through and it's raining and yucky, but hey, it's fourth quarter, so sometimes the day's weather matches our mood or not. Quick shout out to our sponsor, though. Always in a good mood at www.bettersourcebenefits.com. Benefits Options Solutions. Check it out on the web. Great stuff on the www.bettersourcebenefits.com. So today we're going to review a recent survey by the huge conglomerate known as Mercer. Mercer is a huge consulting firm with offices across the country and across the world. And they do a survey. And this survey that we're going to talk about today is got one of the largest sample sizes that we've seen, about 2,500 employers. So it gives us a little bit of a sense of the data that's coming in and a better feel about what we can expect for 2023 and moving forward. But it also takes a look at reviewing some of the stuff some of the trends and some of the market behaviors that we've been pointing to in prior shows here at Benefits with John Clay. So to recap, we're just going to start off with a little bit of a recap. So for 2022, according to this survey, and this is mostly 500 plus employer groups. So we're going to talk about the smaller cases from 2 to 50 and 50 to 500. But in the 500 plus market, the majority of folks are reporting a health benefits increase of only 3.2% for 2022. But they're expecting a higher increase in 2023 at 5.3 or so, 5.4. So what we're seeing there is that even in the big jumbo groups, they're seeing albeit a smaller increase in their trend. They're still seeing that trend increase over time. And that's one of the challenges that we have as consultants is to bend that trend in healthcare spend. So continuing on, 2,000 public and private employers, they're pretty knowledgeable about what's going on. And, this year's 3.2 in 2022 was down from the 2021 average increase, which was 6.3. So it's kind of a roller coaster. Again, though, the healthcare sector has multi-year contracts. They're dealing with higher wages. They're dealing with labor shortages. I mean, COVID killed a lot of these healthcare providers because they didn't have anybody to see. No one was going to the hospital. So they had labor issues where they had to lay off or downsize to stay open. And let me tell you, once they leave, a lot of these employees don't come back. And you may have seen that in your own business. We've talked about here on the show before, the great resignation, quiet quitting, all these other things are impacting not just the healthcare field, but manufacturing, services, and sales. It doesn't matter. It's broadly across the board. So when we're talking about total health benefit costs, in 2015, it was virtually nothing compared to where it is today. And in 5 to 7 short years, boom, we're at $14,000 on average spend for an employee per year on healthcare. Well, they're forecasting that to be up again in 2023 to over $15,000 for the first time. And the sadness of that is many of these folks have health insurance, but they're functionally uninsured because they've been moved down the schedule from benefits that we grew up with first dollar coverage to ridiculously high deductibles and out of pockets. We're going to get into that a little bit later in the show, but the point being is that all this Affordable Care Act language, the use of the word affordable is a relative term, and affordability issue cuts both ways, not only for the employee, but for the employer. They've been challenged year over year for forever to absorb these increases in cost for these medical plans. And, we hate to see that for employers because at the end of the day, what pays for all these healthcare benefits? Profits. It's a direct impact to your bottom line when you're using profits to buy medical benefits. So here we are. You've got employers that are dealing with loss of profits thanks to the pandemic, but you've also got employees that are deferring care because they can't afford to go get things done for fear of what the impact to their bottom line might be in case something goes bad and you have a bad diagnosis. So what we find is people are deferring, and a stage 1 might become a stage 4 before they're ever getting checked out. Not a good thing, and it just puts a burden on the entire system. That downstream, we're talking about a downstream implication of healthcare affordability. That's what it amounts to. So, we've seen, in order to manage costs, we've seen the burden on employees, employers are starting to do some of the things that we encourage here at Better Source Benefits, and that is to shift to a focused navigation platform where we actually have people directed to the higher quality providers, better care, better outcomes with less risk at a lower price. And these high performing providers are generating a huge amount of savings because think about it. When you have a high quality provider, there's lower complications, readmission rates, post-operative infections, and the like. And the employee is going out with a much better frame of mind because they've had care that's been consistently delivered at a higher level. And one of those things is that they communicate well with patients. The days of going in there and we talk to people still yet today, what are you taking that prescription for? I don't know. The doctor gave it to me. Well, that's not taking care of oneself. That's really just kind of ignoring the symptoms and just going for the pills. And many still do that. When you fill out a form, for example, we're surveying on smaller cases, we'll ask a person, what is that for? I don't know. The doctor just gives it to me and it's in that bottle over there on the dresser. I mean, that's patient education at its lowest form. And many are still in that zone, trying to figure out why in the world they're taking a medication, but they just keep on keeping on, And let's not forget, we've talked about this in a prior show as well, the mental health component of this healthcare is coming into the focus this year and the forefront, because mental health care, as a result of the most recent 2 years, has really gotten major attention. There's a whole lot of issues going on with mental health care. And if you're not providing good mental health care for your employees as an employer, you're missing the boat and you need to rethink what you're doing there. So let's talk about this figure 1, which is a health benefit cost per employee. So what we have is this chart is simple, and it's an odd thing when you look at it because the blue line represents the annual change in total health care costs per employee. And you would say, well, let's look at that in terms of the inflation rate, which is the red line. Well, look at this. Back not too long ago in 2002, healthcare inflation soared. Okay. That is just 2 years after the Affordable Care Act was signed into legislation. Now think about that. 2010, what am I thinking? 2002 what I'm trying to illustrate is that there's no direct correlation between the inflation rate and the cost of healthcare. And this graphic shows it. Now, if you fast forward 20 years from 2002 to current 2022, we're seeing again, the inflation rate is ticked up in the red line and healthcare inflation is down. But hey, this is an increase. This is a change rate. So the healthcare inflation hit 20 years ago, but it stayed up there. All this is tracking is the change from year to year. So when it spiked up 14% in 2002, the change has gone down, but the levels of premiums are still way up there. So don't be fooled by graphics that would suggest otherwise. Even though we have higher inflation, that hasn't changed the reality that from 2022 to 2023, you're seeing a $14,000 per employee per year cost go to $15,000 per employee per year. Our target is $7,500 for those that are taking notes, and we'll help you get there if you check out our website at www.bettersourcebenefits.com. So let's continue on. Here's the next graphic, which is a good indication of what I was just sharing with you, that the average per employee cost tips $15,000 in 2022. So golly. And these are broken down by employer size. So the first column is 50 or more employees. And employers with 450 to 499 are in the middle column, moving from 14,896 to 15,278. And then in the big jumbo groups with 500 or more, it's moving from 14,393 to 14,948. So it's not quite tipping the 15,000 on the 500 plus group, but this illustrates that you're not going it alone, Mr. Employer. These large companies are seeing the same deal with their annual costs, and they're doing some of the similar stuff that we do here at Better Source to mitigate cost. So boom, attraction and retention of employees, big deal. And when we look at the next slide, we're going to talk about what is important to employers to prioritize and strategize to enhance benefits in the new year. And so let's go to figure 3. And guess what? Number 1 with a bullet is enhancing benefits to improve attraction and retention. Hello. Look at all the repercussions that poor benefits have. You've got functionally uninsured people that can't get health care for themselves or their family. It leads to poor employee performance. It leads to poor overall mental health and physical health, and it has an impact on the family. No reason or no wonder why this is number 1 with employers with 500 or more employees. And with 20,000 or more, the slide on the left-hand side of this graphic, your employers with 20,000 or more, they're looking at expanding behavioral health care access. I guess everybody in those big groups has really gone crazy. That's no fun. We've had that happen. We've gone through a trend in that in the Americas some time ago, and we don't want to go back. And then number 2, managing high cost claimants or managing costs for specialty drugs. They're both kind of the same, regardless of the size of your group. If you've got a high cost claimant, most of the time they're in a high cost medication. Hello. And so we'll just continue on with sharing the good news that we can do those. We can make adjustments and a custom plan to help manage this for you or your business and restore financial soundness to your plan. And we're doing it with a whole lot of partners from across the country, and it's actually restoring the financial health to a lot of businesses. So, after 2 years of these existential crises, this pandemic, we've thrown in a war in Europe, historic inflation, I mean, these employees are more focused on their financial security and well-being than ever before, climbing that ladder of career advancement. Because what's happening, if you think about it, since 2020, let's see, 2015, okay, about 10 years now, the people that were born in 1945 started aging into um, Medicare, and at the rate of what used to be 5,000 a day is now 10,000 a day, are advancing into Medicare age. 10,000 a day. What does that mean? Well, that means that we are having a hard time replacing those employees because we don't have the people. You know, the baby boomers are moving through. They were born in 45. So it's more like 2020 or 2010. Anyway, my point is the math is not that great today because I'm thinking about the folks that are in my family that are now in their 65 and older age bracket, 70 and older age brackets. Some of them are still working. And when you look at their expertise and their value proposition to an employer, when that talent leaves, what do we have left? And we've got three ways that we can fund that talent. We can have more children, we can import labor from other countries, or we can automate it. And so what you've seen is we've outsourced a lot of labor. We're bringing a whole lot more labor in via an open border, basically. And then you see huge advances made in technology. And boom, here we are, 2022 moving into 2023. And you've got higher inflation, you've got the great resignation, and so forth. So the next figure is going to be talking about the employee's sense of support. And, you know, that's what's happening with these employers is that they're looking for culture. We've talked about this in prior shows too. What is the CEO's three big responsibilities are people, culture, and numbers. And the culture drivers are the big deal that are going on here because people want to feel loved and support in their place of work. And after these pandemic issues have happened, the employee sense of support is diminishing. And, you know, here's the first column is I can maintain a reasonable balance between my personal and work life. That's a big deal. It's dropped since 21 to 22 levels about 4 percentage points. Within my team, the second column, within my team, I feel a sense of belonging. Again, about a 3% drop. I believe I'm compensated fairly for what I do. You know, that's the 1 through 5 or 1 through 10 mark. Well, people are marking that lower this year. And the benefits at my organization are as good or better than those offered elsewhere. So here's the big deal. That's why we were talking about the great resignation. If you think that people are sensitive to wage differences, they're looking past wage differences into the benefits differential as well, because they want to feel as though they've got great benefits and they're willing to move jobs to get those better benefits. And then, of course, I feel that my career goals can be met at my company. If you're not creating that culture of opportunity, they're looking elsewhere as well. And then finally, on the far right column, at the present time, I'm not seriously considering leaving the company. Look at that drop. It's gone from 72% to 64%. And I think we cited that 60-some percent were looking back in the summer. Well, it's 36%. So we weren't far off, but they are still looking. So 36, that's a third of the workforce is considering leaving their current job. And I think our other statistic was of that 36%, probably 40% of that is actively looking. I mean, seriously, actively looking. So let's look here at another graphic. Good stuff, because employers have backed away from offering the high deductible consumer-directed health plan as the only medical plan. This is a trend that hit and with a lead balloon, okay? They were saying, okay, we can help you buy down this rate increase and we'll put in a high deductible plan will put some skin in the game with the employees. And what do you know? The trend has continued to increase year over year. Back to the first graphic. So all of a sudden, we've got a high deductible health plan with a ridiculously high deductible. Say it's $5,000. Well, hey, $5,000 deductible is 10% of a $50,000 annual salary. How many of us have 10% of our annual salary, gross annual salary, laid back for a medical event? And that's a deductible. There could be an 80-20 component and, go on up to $8,150 out of pocket after a $5,000 deductible. And here's the challenge. Employers have nowhere to go when you have that big deductible, high deductible plan, and you get a 10 or 20% rate increase. Well, you can't buy that down any further. You're stuck with a crappy plan and a huge deductible and a 20% rate increase. And most of the time, on smaller cases, if they're fully insured, there's no optics to show you where exactly those claims are going or whether it's a legitimate rate action. So it's beyond the pale that 500 or more employees or 20,000 or more employees, and this gets down to the 2 to 9s too, by the way, that in 2018, look what's highlighted here. How many people are offering the consumer-driven health plan, high deductible stuff, and then they move into that's the dark, you got 3 levels of blue, okay? You got medium blue is the offering. Then you've got the dark blue, which is the exclusive offering for a consumer-driven health plan as a full replacement. And then the light blue is the number of employers that have not offered that consumer-driven health plan. So in the left-hand set of charts, you got 500 or more employees that have moved along that line. They've increased what they're doing with offering these plans alongside, but they've pulled back on the number of employers that are offering it as a full replacement exclusively. So it went from 13 to 12 to 10. So that's continuing to decline because they're not working. High deductible health plans don't work for anybody. Employees can't save fast enough to cover the cost of their deductibles. Employers can't see any benefits of moving to that high deductible plan at renewal time. So here we go. We're just penalizing the employer and the employee for having a job with benefits where they may be working side by side with someone who's got it free through Medicaid. It's ridiculous. So they are using, the brokers and advisors have been using cost shifting as a way to mitigate the cost for their clients, their employees, their employers. And the employees have borne the brunt of that. And now there's nowhere to go. So that's why we were saying earlier in the program today that many of these increases are being absorbed by the employer. There's nowhere to go. It is downstream implications of healthcare affordability once again rear its ugly head. So one of the biggest healthcare drivers is high cost medications. And I read an article today that was talking about the complex network of patent protections that exist to protect drugs like Humira. Humira has over 70 different patents that protect that drug from being copied or violated in terms of patent protection. That has generated somewhere in the neighborhood of $200 billion for AbbVie, the labs that create and serve and market and make Humira. It's the number one rheumatoid arthritis drug and plaque psoriasis drug in the country, maybe the world. But the point being is that they have these network of patents that protect all these high cost drugs, and it's basically abusing the market because you've got protections from the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office that prohibits you from going in there and copying that or generating that drug as a generic. So what we've seen is a move to biosimilar drugs that have the same chemical compounds with biosimilar components, not the exact same, but biosimilar same. So you've got the FDA that approved these drugs. You've got the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office that protects these drugs, and you've got the cost of these drugs increasing out the roof. Crazy, crazy stuff. So let's go back to three big reasons that employees are leaving their employers. Because here's what we know. We know that the ability to meet monthly expenses have become the number one employee concern. That this study we just referenced when we opened the show, that concerns over inflation have placed the financial health as the greatest of the employees' unmet needs. These are the things that keep employees up at night, and they certainly keep during these holidays, keep an even a balanced family challenged. You've got, big deal if you've got a sick child or a child with a condition, or you have a spouse or anyone in the household with a condition. Covering monthly expenses is number one. Then you've got work-life balance. The work-life balance, like we said in this earlier graphic with the sense of support that's shown here, this mental health business is a big deal, and it's causing stress, and it's causing a whole lot of people to consider, 36% as we said, considering looking for another position. Here's the takeaway too. Nearly 1 in 3 employees making less than $60,000 a year say they've taken on additional work to supplement their income. $60,000 a year. That means if you have a high deductible health plan with a $6,000 deductible, that's 10% of your gross income that you would have to come up with for a medical event on one person, right? So you're looking to take on extra work just to make ends meet and cover the cost of whatever it might be in the household, whether it's a condition or it's just maintaining expenses thanks to inflation. We've seen groceries go up, folks, and we've certainly seen gas. It's coming back down, but gas has been at highs for, I don't know. We just know that energy is also going up. So you've got not just the gas and the groceries, but energy costs going into winter are up as well. So it's no wonder that people, even at making $60,000 a year, are taking on extra work to make ends meet. No shock. So it's between mental health, affordability, and just the general household expenses, it's tough times out there. And what you have to do is say, okay, how can we make this a better place to work? How can we improve benefits? And I would love to have you enjoy a couple of clicks through on our website here at www.bettersourcebenefits.com and have a look at the results page on where we've turned that ship around for a couple of clients, and we have many more, but we just don't put them all out there on the website. So that's really it. The case studies that you see on that website have been permanent savings, and we've restored benefits and given financial control back to the employers and financial stability back to the employees. A win-win for them, and certainly a way to offset some of the storm that we see coming on with this survey that we just shared from the almighty Mercer Benefits Consulting Group. So that's it for today. We won't be having a show next week. It's the week of Christmas. And we won't be having a show the week of New Year's because we are finishing up our open enrollments, and we will join back with you on the first week of January. And we'll have a new show, bigger and better. and well, maybe not bigger, maybe not better, but still just as important to share the good news of breaking through the status quo. And again, I'm your host and Chief Strategy Officer, John Clay. I wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. All the best for 2023, and look forward to meeting you and talking about benefits in the new year. So for now, we're signing off for 2022, and we'll see you again in 2023. Take care, everybody.